Hello, welcome back. I'm Jim LaPierre. This is Sober Now. Today's topic is gratitude and joy. Sometimes, especially in early recovery, those are hard things to come by. Recognizing a lot of the challenges that we're facing these days, living in the middle of a pandemic, everything that we have to overcome personally, and of course, the holiday season is tough for an awful lot of us. So, gratitude and joy are two of the most worthwhile things that I can pursue. The impact that they have on my attitude is incredible. There's a quote that I like to share from my all-time favorite author, Tom Robbins. He said, "My personal motto has always been joy in spite of everything. Not mindless joy. I recognize the inequities of the world. I see the suffering of the world. I simply refuse to let it rain on my parade." And so to have an attitude of appreciation, to have gratitude is to grow spiritually. And some of the folks I know who have amazing recovery make it a daily practice to make a short gratitude list, to find things every day that they appreciate. And so we're going to explore some of those themes today and talk about how gratitude is actually an enormous boon to your recovery. It's something that will make a profound difference. Would love, as always, to hear your experience, strength, and hope. Welcome your questions. We're live streaming on Sober Now's Facebook page today. If you haven't been over there yet, head over, give it a quick like. You'll get weekly notifications about new video content and live streaming events that we're doing. Check us out on Choose Help's Facebook page. Love to have you see some of the content that's over there on recovery and really pragmatic solutions to some of the challenges that we all face. So my challenge for you today is to take a moment and consider what are the things that you take for granted. One of the real huge, one of the huge benefits of my job is because I'm so often meeting with people who have suffered profoundly, who have lost everything, who have hit that proverbial rock bottom, I get reminders of things that I don't think about. I think it's human nature, or maybe it's just my nature. When something stays the same long enough, it becomes something that I think of as normal, and that means that I'm likely to stop thinking about it. So I don't really think about the fact that I always have a home to return to. I always have food to eat. My basic life needs are always met. But for a high percentage of people in the world, that's just not true. And so I want to maintain appreciation for what I have. And I've learned that being generous with what I have is a real key to my happiness. And I espouse that to others. There's a lot of roadblocks to gratitude. In recovery, we often hear people say, "I just want," and whatever they say next is usually either a statement of self-pity or a statement of powerlessness. I'll tease some folks sometimes that all I ever wanted was a little bit more than I ever had. But the more I have appreciation for what is in my life, and of course those are the important things, most especially people. My friends in NA often say to each other and to me, "I appreciate you." And having those kind of connections spiritually and in fellowship has made all of the difference in my life. And I know that most of us are afraid to make those new connections, to reach out, to ask for what we need. But doing so will not only improve your recovery, it will help the person that you ask those things of. The adage is, it helps us to help you. And that is very counterintuitive, but extraordinarily true. I picked up a few of my favorite quotes on gratitude this week. Emerson said, "I woke this morning with devout thanksgiving for my friends, the old and the new." And at this time of year, through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, I think we do have a heightened awareness of family and friends. And unfortunately for a lot of us, that can be painful. Our family of origins are often unhealthy. Sometimes we feel obligated to maintain those connections. And I'm really huge on chosen family. Those are the people that I'm most grateful for. Those are the people that choose me to have in their lives and to love unconditionally. Eckhart Tolle said that it is through gratitude for the present moment that the spiritual dimension of life opens up. I know that that's true. I often think of Anne Lamott's quote that there are really only three types of prayer: help, wow, and thanks. So I'm fond of the expression that there are no atheists in foxholes, and so when we get down enough, when things are hard enough, it's so common it's a song. I'm still alive, but I'm barely breathing, been praying to a God that I don't believe in. I think that's the script. And the idea that we seek out a higher power out of desperation, the idea that we ask for what we need when we can't stand it one more moment, all of those things facilitate connection to a power greater than ourselves and create an infinite number of possibilities. And I always remind folks that a power greater than you doesn't have to be a deity or a god. It can be an organization like AA. It can be a friend group or any people who love you and support your recovery. Gratitude, I say, is essential for recovery because it reminds us that even when things go wrong, that we have a lot of good things in our life, that we can turn things around. I think too often, especially in early recovery, we tend to get in our own way. We can be self-limiting or even self-destructive. Gratitude allows us to take on new challenges or new goals with a more positive mindset. We are people who plan for the worst and hope for the best, which I'm pretty sure is impossible to do simultaneously. But if we can go into a goal with some measure of support and asking a higher power to kind of guide us along the way, my plans continue to suck. What my higher power wants from me is always pretty great. And so the challenge for me is to receive that. And I do that most often through the people that are placed in my path. I think gratitude is a huge piece of moving away from self-loathing and moving towards self-respect and fairness to self. I think self-love is really just an ideal. I don't know that we ever fully get there, but I know that my attitude determines a great deal about how I relate to myself, about what my self-talk will be, and maintaining fairness and respect creates possibilities that beating up on myself or being overly self-critical negate. Melody Beattie had some cool things to say about gratitude. She said, "Gratitude turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, confusion into clarity. It makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow." In seeking serenity and peace, having gratitude for the good things that are in our life is a huge way to approach that. So I'm going to pause just for a moment. I always want to hear your thoughts, your experience, strength, and hope. What questions do you have? A.A. Milne actually had some cool things to say about gratitude. He wrote that Piglet noticed that though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude. If you're looking for some reading to supplement your recovery or expand or maybe just begin your spirituality, I can't recommend highly enough The Tao of Pooh, written by Benjamin Hoff. Very clever man. He explains the tenets of Taoism through the characters of Winnie the Pooh. And noticing that kind of childlike innocence that comes along with those stories and the type of ability to be fully present in the moment that it facilitates. One of the things that I'm most grateful for are the lessons that my higher power has put in front of me. I don't know that my higher power has ever really just taken away a problem or a character defect of mine, but she certainly puts situations in my path and people in my path to help me learn the lesson. Now, I'm never grateful when I'm going through the learning experience. Honestly, it's usually very, very uncomfortable and even painful. And I've lived long enough and well enough that I can sometimes spot I've had the opportunity to learn this lesson before. And unfortunately, I'm a slow learner with a high pain tolerance. So sometimes it takes a very long time for me to have the willingness to acknowledge what the lesson is and to accept the support that I need, not only in accepting it, but also putting it into action and integrating it into my life, into my perspective, into my sense of self. So I guess the more I allow my higher power to work through others in my life, the more I can recognize that I don't have to like something to accept it. Quite often, it's like when people in recovery tell me that they're confused. They typically are not. They know the truth and they hate it. We're looking for a kinder, gentler way to go about something. The lesson is something that I'm profoundly grateful for after I've learned it, but not while I'm going through it. There's a bumper sticker that people in recovery have that says, "Oh no, not another learning experience." And I've always kind of chuckled when I've seen that, because we know the universal truth of that. We know that we're better for it, but we know that we're not appreciating it while we're going through it. As I mentioned earlier, I think generosity is a great way to improve gratitude. I'm a big believer in tipping really well. I appreciate anyone who serves me in any capacity, and that especially includes servers. And so having more than I need means that I get to be generous with those who serve me. It also means that I get to support a lot of different charities, and I get to support a lot of different people. And the cliche really is true. It feels so much better to me to give than to receive. I'm convinced that my higher power wants me to be really good at both of those. And if you're anything like me, then giving comes very naturally, and receiving is hard. Receiving requires much more vulnerability. It requires moving past any feelings we have about being unworthy or undeserving, and simply allowing others to have their own truth about us, their own opinion, and to appreciate us, to show appreciation for us. These are hard, but they're well worth it. I say be generous with your time. One of the most guaranteed ways to get out of your own way and improve your mental health and improve your recovery is to be of service to others. And I think of that in the simplest of terms. If you really want to make a difference in somebody's life, really be present with them. Just really, really, really listen. I reinforce this lesson all the time. I just finished teaching a graduate class of students who are going to become therapists in the next year or so. And they're very, very anxious to learn super advanced things, and they want to know all of the most amazing techniques. And I think it's kind of a relief, but also a disappointment when I say to them, if you can be fully present in the moment with no agenda and just help someone to feel really, really heard and really, really understood, it's pretty incredible what that alone can do in a person's life. We're people who struggle to understand ourselves. And if somebody else can demonstrate that they get us, I think that helps us to feel less alone. I think that helps us to feel like maybe we're not crazy, which we aren't. We're just people who have suffered. We're people who have survived trauma. And we're people who absolutely, what's most vital to my life is to connecting to people that get me. In the absence of that, the world seems like a very lonely place. And so if I can just give someone the gift of really attending to them, really listening to them, and really just caring. I don't have to have any solutions necessarily or try to fix them. I can just help them explore what their options are or what it is that they need. Wonderful way to increase your gratitude. Take inventory daily. I love the way that this is explained in step 10 of the 12 steps and 12 traditions of AA. The idea is that we reflect each day, what did I take on that doesn't belong to me? What did I do today that requires an amends? What kind of emotions did I experience through the day, and are those potentially new resentments in the making? I think of my friend Artis often. She would talk about practicing this step and realizing that quite often she would take on things that didn't belong to her. She would take on other people's pain or other people's fears, or she would take on their problems as though they were her own. I frequently hear from people in recovery, Jim, you have to understand, I'm an empath, I can't help it. And I know that that's true. I know that empaths are people who experience what others feel. I also know that empaths tend to have very sponge-like hearts, and we absorb other people's emotions, and we continue to carry those around with us until that sponge is full. We have so many expectations of self that tend to be unhealthy, and they tend to be subconsciously driven. So if that sponge never gets wrung out, eventually it just can't hold anymore. Ideally, introspection is an opportunity to identify, am I worrying? Worrying is something that I think we do way too much of. And we do it on behalf of other people. We worry about the people we love. And I always want to encourage folks to differentiate concern from worry. To be concerned about someone is healthy, and it potentially gives us the opportunity to be present or to be of service to them. But worrying them doesn't help. Worrying for them doesn't benefit them in any way. So maybe just something to consider. Of course, we worry about ourselves and anticipate the future, and all of those things rob us of the joy of being present in today. I always want to differentiate too when we talk about being empaths or when we talk about being concerned for others. There's a world of difference between caring for someone and taking care of them. We need to trust that the adults in our lives will accept the responsibility of caring for themselves, because if we cross those lines into taking care of them, we have taken on a responsibility that doesn't belong to us. We're functioning as caregivers or peacekeepers. These are very thankless jobs that tend to leave a person feeling very angry, very resentful of the fact that it's not reciprocated. We tend to gravitate towards the familiar and stay with people who are usually fairly selfish. That's what we know. That's how we know to be. But progressively, the thing that we discover about ourselves is that we're angry. We're angry that it's not reciprocated. We're angry that we don't receive the kind of appreciation that we most want, even though we struggle to receive it. So I think part of being grateful is acknowledging what are my personal responsibilities and what am I trying to do that is not my business or is not respecting boundaries. Too often our good intentions result in doing things that are simply unhealthy. A few more tips to share. Start viewing challenges as opportunities instead of just problems or obstacles or things that suck. I think it's important that we build faith and confidence in ourselves as we go, and as we make the choice to grow spiritually, whether that's through step work or fellowship or just in a personal relationship with a power greater than ourselves. The shift that creates in our awareness, the opportunities that creates in our life are endless. I know that when I look back in retrospect, I can clearly see so many things that were placed in my path. But when I was busy with my plans, or when I was focused on the needs, feelings, wants of others and avoiding myself, I know that I missed a lot of opportunities and really amazing things that my higher power put in my path. So just more things to consider, more things to be aware of. I've come to see gratitude as a form of intimacy. Intimacy is something that I believe we all want, but most of us are very fearful of. Intimacy has a cool definition of into me see. Not having filters, not holding back, letting our walls down, sharing with somebody who we really are, what we really need and feel, and allowing them to see us as we are, come close to us. Intimacy is what I most want with my higher power. It's what I most want with the people that I love. And it's also what I most want with the people that I serve. Vulnerability allows me to communicate more effectively, to serve more greatly. It facilitates all of the best things that I want in my life. Sometimes we get a reminder of where we might have been. The expression "there but for the grace of God go I" comes to mind when we see someone in active addiction, when we see someone who is just suffering greatly, and to acknowledge that that could have been us, or maybe it was us at one time. I've always loved the expression of being a grateful alcoholic or addict. Another very counterintuitive expression, but the idea is the person is saying essentially, had I not developed the disease of addiction and come into recovery, my life would have never been enriched in so many ways. So for so many of us, addiction recovery is just the beginning. It leads to a million good things and other forms of healing. We tend to associate recovery only with substance use disorder, but we can also associate it with other things that people recover from. Everything from trauma to mental illness to eating disorders to self-harm. People recover from other diseases. They recover from cancer. They go into remission. One of the beautiful things about substance use disorder, it's one of the very few disorders that we can choose remission. I think ideally, there's times in your life where you take stock and you give yourself credit for how far you've come. There's another adage there, I may not be where I want to be, but thank God I'm not where I was. I think giving ourselves credit and integrating the progress that we've made is frankly pretty scary. We get superstitious. We're afraid of jinxing ourselves. And I think it's vital. I think it is really important to catch up to ourselves and to allow ourselves opportunities to just simply acknowledge, okay, I didn't know if I could do that, and I did. I wasn't sure if I would get this far, and I did. I had obstacles in my path. I had adversity, and I overcame it. To develop confidence requires facing the fear or doing the thing that was outside of your comfort zone. But confidence lends itself to faith. So if I'm facing a new challenge today, there's no reason for me to feel confident. I don't necessarily have any past success with it. It's something that's new. It's something that's outside of my comfort zone. But because I have so often faced fear and so often overcome hardship, I can have a lot of faith in myself that this is just one more time where I'm going to be successful sooner or later. I am going to prevail. I am going to overcome whatever is placed in my path. And I'm going to do so in the company of really good people who actively support, encourage me, and hold me accountable. In the absence of that, nothing works anyway. So I'm grateful for the people who not only encourage and support me, but who also hold my feet to the fire and say, look, these are necessary steps. These are promises that you made to yourself. These are goals that you want to accomplish. And that has facilitated so much of my personal and professional success. I can't recommend it highly enough. I think this is a natural time of reflection. The holidays are still points. There are times when we just kind of naturally look back at where we've come and we kind of take stock of where we are and we think about where we're going. I know that most of us, or probably all of us, are so hopeful that 2021 is going to be a vastly better year than what 2020 has been. This has been a year of great uncertainty. This has been a year of a lot of fear and a lot of change. And even when the change is positive, I think we tend to approach any transition or any change with fear and pessimism, because that's what our past experiences taught us. And so that's a shift that we can make with huge benefit. Expectations are subconsciously developed and maintained. If we bring them out, put them on paper, we can notice that what are the things that are different in our life today? Who are the people that are in our lives today? What is there any reason to maintain the worldview that we maintained in the past, or do we have to adjust that based on who we are? What is different in our lives today as far as resources and options? I think too often we feel like scared little kids in overgrown bodies, and so sometimes we just are coming from a place of fear or shame, and we can't necessarily identify everything that's possible in our lives today. David, thank you for checking in. I appreciate all your kind words. It's always good to connect with folks. And thank you for the kind words, too, on the Monet behind me. Many, many million years ago, when I was in therapy for the first time as a client, my therapist had a Monet on her wall, and so I promised myself that when I got into the field, I'd make sure I had one on mine. So all kinds of reminders in my office, whether they're paintings or quotes or things that my clients have done over the years. This is a space that I can easily feel grateful sitting in. I'm surrounded currently by amazing people. I get to do work that I love. I get to serve people who are very, very, very much like me. And I get to employ people who are very much like me. A lot of the things that I'm grateful for today aren't things that directly benefit me per se, but they're things that benefit the people that I love. I'm very grateful for community recovery centers, for sober houses, for increased employment opportunities, educational opportunities, and job training opportunities for people in recovery. I'm grateful to have learned so much from 12-step programs, despite not being a member. It has their literature and the connections that I have with people who are in 12-step programs has resulted in a huge amount of spiritual growth. I recommend the literature and the people to folks who have never even experienced a substance use disorder. And for professionals or people who just don't understand addiction and substance use disorder, I always say the people who have taught me the most are those with lived experience. I'm always amazed at the different fellowships and how readily they welcome me. And these are folks that I'm profoundly grateful for. So I'm going to be wrapping up in just a minute. I have a couple of requests for you. The first one is please connect with me. I love hearing questions that folks have and happy to answer. Happy to share resources. Jim@sobernow.com is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Would love to have you check out our YouTube channel. About 110, 115 video vlogs now. It's pretty cool stuff. It's completely free and it's all topics directly relating to recovery. So check that out. Give it a like. We're adding new content all the time. Really excited to share with you. This has been a work in progress for a long time. SoberNow.com is now available as a subscription service. So for a very, very low cost, you can get access to our 28-day programs for recovery from substance use disorder and a separate program for affected others, for folks who have a loved one in active addiction or maybe early recovery. A couple of really great programs there that are accessible and a very low cost. It's amazing to me. Ensures complete confidentiality. And we're adding exclusive content to the site every week. Would love to get topic suggestions from you, things that you'd like to hear about. So if you would, I'd really appreciate it if you put a quick like on this video and maybe share with friends and family so that we can expand these conversations and provide more service. So please take excellent care of you, connect with us, and I will look forward to talking to you very soon, right after the holidays. Be well.